CURBIO has experienced such rapid growth that it might have outkicked its coverage. We have a recent lawsuit that CURBIO was named in addition to it being named in a lawsuit back in November from an attorney general up in Washington, D.C. So there is some headwinds that CURBIO is having to face at the moment. But before we actually get into the article and break it down and see what's going on, just a little bit of a backdrop. CURBIO is essentially a contractor, or it helps with the contractor process. So the way that it works is homeowners will get with CURBIO, and CURBIO will be doing the work of updating the home before it goes to market. So essentially, for those homeowners that might not have the money to do some upgrades that an agent might suggest, or that the homeowners themselves want to make before they actually go to market, as opposed to selling the house as is, where it won't capture top dollar, well, CURBIO comes in to save the day and helps with the renovations and all that fun stuff. Now, the huge differentiator here is that the homeowner doesn't have to pay up front. So you have CURBIO here providing the service of the updating, the upgrading, and all that fun stuff. It actually does the work as well. It gets the contractors in place and does the work as well. So essentially, it's taking on all of the risk. And then when it's time to sell and the home actually sells, that's when CURBIO gets paid plus a fee. So that's essentially, in a nutshell, that is what CURBIO is. So let's see what is going on at the present moment. CURBIO faces lawsuits, complaints from agents amid rapid growth. So let's explore. The few companies have had the kind of run CURBIO is enjoying, which is true. They've been growing so quickly. Founded by Rick Rudman in 2017, the company has raised $118 million via 3 founding rounds. It has racked up multiple accolades, including a victory at a pitch battle hosted by NAR for nonprofit investment subsidiary Second City Ventures. I have a little bit of experience with this pitch battle because my company, Agently, was actually at pitch battle. It wasn't in this particular one. I think CURBIO was there either 2019, 2020 or so. That's when they went through IOI. And we went in 2022. We went to Los Angeles and did the pitch battle there, which is essentially is put on by NAR. It's a phenomenal event where you have tech startups or startups altogether, but yes, tech startups that will do a pitch battle, and really it's more for exposure. It's not about the award that you get, because I think it's like $15,000, which is nice. I mean, we would have loved to have won that, which we didn't, by the way. But at the end of the day, it was more about the exposure and getting in front of the big brokers, big teams, other associations, MLSs, and things of that nature. So this is actually an event that's put on by NAR, and it's the IOI Summit. And within that summit, they have that pitch battle where you have about 8 to 10 startups that would do the presenting of their particular startup. So for us, it was Agently. But again, they ended up winning that one. And I think that was 2019, if I'm not mistaken. So we were a few classes after CURBIO. So as you can see, it was revolutionary, at least for the real estate space. Not at least for, like, it was revolutionary at that space, because you can imagine all of if it works perfectly as it's intended, everybody wins. The homeowner wins. The agents, who are the ones that bring in CURBIO most of the time, actually all the time, they win because they get a higher sales price as well. And you have CURBIO providing that service. So in theory, you have the win from the homeowner, the win from the agent, win from CURBIO, and also win for the home buyer as well, because they're getting into a high quality home that is not just a patched job, right? All right, so let's continue. And it's now doing pre-sale home renovations in 55 different markets. This is that explosive growth. So imagine having to coordinate all of these amount of contractors, because they're not CURBIO employees. There's no way to sustain that. They go out and source the contractors to do the work as well. So think of it like just a project manager on steroids in so many different markets. NAR even partnered with the company last month, keeping the company on its path to working with more realtors and their sellers. eXp Realty, which has 90,000 agents, partnered up with CURBIO, and you have some other major brokerages that have partnered up with CURBIO as well. So again, it's the agents that are really fueling the growth to CURBIO, because you have a lot more agents that get notified of this particular program, and they are incentivized to bring the client to CURBIO, or introduce CURBIO to the client is a better way of saying it, because there you have that perfect win that we were talking about. The home seller gets more, the agent gets more, CURBIO gets its fee and gets all that fun stuff, and then also you have a buyer that is satisfied with that home purchase, as opposed to selling it as is or getting a loan to do the construction ahead of time. So those are the other options that you could explore outside of CURBIO or its competitors, which we will talk about one of its competitors here shortly. But all those wins have come up against the backdrop of apparent growing pains for the company that have included strained relationships with past realtors and past clients, as well as dozens of lawsuits. Then in November, as we were talking about earlier, the Washington, D.C. Attorney General Brian Schwab, we're going to say Schwab, filed suit against CURBIO, dismissing its practices as a scheme of deception, intimidation, and fraud. Those are some harsh words. And of course, CURBIO denies it categorically. We strongly disagree with the assertions made by the D.C. Attorney General's office, and we have filed our response denying all allegations, CURBIO said in a statement. And then it goes on to substantiate the thousands of completed projects that it has had over the years and all of the reviews, which we will look at some reviews today just to give you an idea of the recent opinion of at least a few people that have voiced their concerns and also voiced their pleasure as well. The service that, this is alluding to the delays, liens, and lost equity. The service that they provide is awesome for clients that have a lot of equity in their home, but they cannot afford to make the upgrades in order for their home to sell for at least market or higher. Tennessee agent Lori Tacker told Inman, my particular client would have sold as is and would not have received as much money as she did. So this crystallizes that niche that CURBIO is filling, that demand, that value that CURBIO is providing, which again, if it all works as according to plan, that's great. You have a home seller that sells for more. You have an agent that is provides value by bringing CURBIO in and also is going to generate more income as well because of the higher sales price. CURBIO does what they need to do and they increase their market value. And then you have the home buyer that has a high quality repair done on the home that they have ended up purchasing, as opposed to a patch job or having to do it themselves as well. So this is a really good product. Again, if everything works smoothly, phenomenal, slam dunk. It's a great thing to do. All right. CURBIO utilizes a collection of low-cost subcontractors to deliver an overpriced, low-quality product after locking customers into a one-sided contract from which there is no escape, Schwab continued in his complaint. So again, this goes back to the D.C. Attorney General. That's what that was what was in the complaint. So it's a main. You're going to hear this quite a bit. You're going to see the low cost subcontractors and low quality product. You're going to hear that quite a bit. I'm sorry. You're going to hear those two for sure. Low quality product is one that's going to be repeated over and over again, but also delays. You're going to hear hear a few stories from some of these agents and also from some of the reviews. That is something that happens quite frequently. Now, if you're thinking, well, that's construction, you're right, but that's the business model. That's a high risk of this business model, especially when you're working with contractors in different markets that you don't necessarily control, right? But anyway, in a lawsuit filed against the company on February 29th, so here just recently, a couple of days ago, attorneys for a homeowner who worked with CURBIO said the woman's experiences was eerily similar to those alleged by Schwab. Again, Schwab is the attorney general in D.C. that originally brought that suit in November. So you have another complaint, you have another lawsuit being filed here recently. The complaint alleges costs rose and that work was delayed and damaged the home. So there you have the cost has risen. There's actually damage to the home now, and that it was delayed. CURBIO did not wait for completion of the project before issuing the mechanic's lien against her property and telling her that she should be personally liable for over $130,000 for work that CURBIO had not performed. I don't necessarily think that would be accurate, but it's what's being alleged right now. just knowing what I know from the particular model that CURBIO operates. In terms of, the things that have not been completed yet, I think that there's probably something in there that led CURBIO to believe that there's no way that they're going to allow us to complete the rest of the work. And also the lien is something that I think you can file ahead of time, even if the work has not been completed. Specifically, again, if they don't give you access to the property or things, or that type of situation, I suspect that that's what's going on there. It should have taken a few months, Lewis said. So here we go. Somebody else. In theory, the theory is nice. Tara Lewis, a realtor in Southern Cal, recounted multiple experiences using CURBIO. If you can have work done and pay for the proceeds at sale, of course, you want to go on that avenue. After referring her third client to CURBIO to fix up his LA home before selling, the work ended up taking much longer than expected. It should have taken a few months, Lewis said. It took a year and a half. Okay. And Lewis's client dropped her from his $2.2 million listing. That's a huge, that's what, when we stick out, not just with CURBIO, but when we put our neck out on the line and provide referrals, we really are putting our neck out on the line, right? So, because we're always asked, hey, who's your plumber? Who's your gardener? Who's your pool guy? Who's your electrician? Who's your sound guy? If they're installing surround sound? We get asked for every type of referral. Who's your handyman and all that fun stuff. So we are putting our neck out on the line every single time. Now, unfortunately, in this particular situation with CURBIO, you wouldn't necessarily expect this to happen for them, especially if this agent has used CURBIO in the past. But you're looking at somebody that is doing a huge, I'm not going to say intrusive work, but is so key to this particular listing that if CURBIO stumbles and provides just a bad experience, the agent, for as little or as much control as they have, which in this case they have little to no control, they look bad, and ultimately you're at a disadvantage where you had nothing to do with this particular fumble that CURBIO might have had, where you lose the listing. And that happened again here later on in this particular article. So I will link it down below for you to check it out. But it just happens, and this is for sure not the only time that this has happened, that agents have lost a listing because of CURBIO. Now, it's impossible to say exactly how many times that has happened, but we also need to look at it on the flip side, how many times it's been successful, right? So in this particular case, this goes on to say that it's been far more successful than it hasn't. So check this out. 60 lawsuits in comparison to 4,000 transactions in the same period of the time. Oh, okay, sorry, I didn't highlight the previous one. So essentially what this is talking about is when you're looking at the amount of transactions that was being done or have been done by the CURBIO, on average, whenever they did the research over at Inman, they saw that CURBIO was suing on average one lawsuit per month. That's what their average was. They were filing a lawsuit once per month. So if you look at it in comparison to the 4,000 transactions that they've done, to have 60 lawsuits out of 4,000 transactions, that's the cost of doing business. You're gonna have some situations where there's no avoiding it. You're gonna have some situations where sellers back out. You're gonna have some situations where maybe sellers didn't understand completely what was going on and they had cold feet and they ultimately stopped being responsive. So you, as a CURBIO company, you don't have as many options. You've committed to do the work, or you've done part of the work, or you have completed the work. You need to get paid at some point in time. So that's why the legal system exists. So for them to be doing 60 lawsuits out of 4,000 transactions, that's not high. Now, then they go on to compare CURBIO to a similar model, which is free model. And I don't necessarily think that it's a just comparison, even though they are operating the same particular model, but free model hasn't been around that long. And so I don't necessarily think that comparing, hey, this company has had lawsuits versus this other company hasn't had lawsuits. Maybe they just have a different way of doing business, and free model might just be eating all that cost. Or they're a lot better at selecting who they're going to end up working with. According to the terms of CURBIO's agreement with the association, NAR members will get free access to CURBIO's app to build an estimate of what renovations would cost, which is valuable. They'll also get a free digital floor plan with every proposal from CURBIO if the job is expected to cost $10,000 or less. Again, I'm going to link this up down below. I want to see what the latest reviews have been. We're going to just go very, very briefly. I went to CURBIO and I sorted based off of the newest reviews, and the same things that I mentioned at the beginning. Delays was something that was brought up quite a bit. Subpar quality of work was also brought into play. The overpriced was also something that was mentioned quite a bit. So you have, of the latest reviews, let's see which ones have 3 stars or below. 1, 2. So you have two negative, 2 positive, 3 negative, 3 negative, 3 positive, 4 positive, 5 positive, 6 positive, 4 positive, 4 negative, 6 positive, 7 positive, 8 positive, 9 positive, 10 positive, 5 positive, 5 negative. So 5 negative. So what is that? A third of them have at least in this case, it would be two stars or less. So really, I recognize that with reviews. I just thought it was interesting, and just to see if there's maybe a dramatic switch that we could be found, if there was a pattern here that maybe CURBIO operated different way back in the day. And as I can kind of see, it looks like primarily there were a lot more positive reviews than negative reviews over the last several months. And I recognize that with reviews, you're probably going to get the people that are slighted or feel slighted reviewing a lot more than the people that had their work be done the way that it was supposed to be done, right? So I recognize that this is not just a CURBIO thing. This is just a human nature thing. This is a consumer thing, where if you feel slighted, you want to get even. So one of the ways that you can get even is by voicing your opinion and shouting it from the rooftops. And that's something that you can accomplish through Google reviews. So just going through here, for the most part, it has a 4-star average. I do think that the latest 3 months have been a little bit unkind to CURBIO, where if you take out those particular reviews, or if we were to backtrack 3 months behind, I would suspect that this would be a 4.2, 4.4, because based off of past 3 months, it appeared that there was a lot more 5 stars than not. But I want to hear from you. Let me know in the comment section down below if you have some CURBIO experience. Have you referred a client to them? Have you worked with CURBIO? What has been your experience, for the good and the bad? We want to hear it all. I'll talk to you tomorrow.